So, when we were growing up, internet was a way to escape the real world. And now the real world is the way to escape the internet.
Correct,
right?
correct.
So we've actually gone to a zone where travel becomes the way that people are bonding with each other, right? As families, as friends.
Right.
Because in your regular routine life, you don't get an iota of time to actually do that. As a platform, we've never thought of ourselves as a company that sells tickets. We've always thought of ourselves as a company that sells peace of mind. And peace of mind is very hard to sell because you need to take care of every small pain point that may arise and be obsessed over it. So in a nutshell, that's been our philosophy in building this. Many people choose not to do something where monetization is not evident. But the highest ROI innovation started as things that nobody had any obsession for monetization for, but became so big over time. You look at Google, you look at Meta, you look at OpenAI. At the end of the day, if you're solving a hard problem, it may take years. It may mean you will not monetize for a few years as well. There was not much monetization in early days of Ixigo either.
Okay.
But if you solve it deeply enough, there will be enough customer love. And that customer love means that you evoke trust. And that trust is monetizable through other means, right? Our cultural traditions, our dharmic values make us more empathetic. The reason is that, we are always told that if you do something to someone, it's going to come back to you, right?
Right.
That it's very important to experience adversity in your life because it builds more empathy. So if you wanted to ask me how do I become more empathetic, I will say go through a lot of pain, go through a lot of adversity.
Do a
You'll
startup.
automatically become empathetic.
Do a startup, you'll go through.
Do a bootstrap startup for 5 years without VC funding. You will become very empathetic.
People talk about processes. You can't create a process for empathy. It has to be driven by the
just
whole value
cannot.
system. Yeah. And like you're saying, you give that to the customer, solve their problem, and the whole love comes back. And obviously then the whole revenue becomes it'll follow, but that is not the primary goal. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of CX with Chopra, where we talk about everything CX. So today I'm very excited and thrilled to introduce our guest today, Mr. Aloke Bajpai, who's the co-founder and CEO, group CEO of Ixigo. Ixigo, I think, is one brand which is loved by, I think, majority of Indians, across, I would say, talking about me as an avid follower of Ixigo, across bus, train, air travel. And I've been following Aloke for, I think, more than a decade now, from being a bootstrap company to now being a public company. What I really like about you is how you have obsessed about experience, I think, right from day one. And it's so heartening and inspiring to see that whole journey. And there's lots to be learned from you. And I'm looking forward to the next, 30 to 45 minutes in terms of learning, in terms of how do you see CX? What does CX mean to you? How do you foresee CX transforming in a year, 2 years with AI? So many things happening. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me on the show, Arjun. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Likewise. And I would probably want to start with, when we talk about travel, and travel is one experience where there's so many emotions, which happens. There is an anticipation, there is anxiety, there is joy, and right from thinking of, hey, I need to go to Goa, hey, I need to go to Bali or Maldives or wherever.
The joy starts there.
The joy starts there. Then like, oh shit, I have to plan, I have to travel, and then there's a whole journey. So, but on the other side, it's a big tech play as well. So there are platforms like Ixigo, who do this seamlessly. How does a brand humanize the whole tech experience so the end customer like me, for example, can relate to it?
Right. No, like you rightly said, travel is one of the few things we spend money on, which actually makes us richer. Right? True. Because probably books is the other one.
Yeah.
Right? Because it enriches, that experience enriches you when you come back, right?
Right.
So therefore, people look forward to planning, look forward to that experience, spending more time with family, So, when we were growing up, internet was a way to escape the real world. And now the real world is the way to escape the internet.
Correct,
Right?
correct.
So
Yeah.
we've actually gone to a zone where travel becomes the way that people are bonding with each other, right? As families, as friends.
Right.
Because in your regular routine life, you don't get an iota of time to actually do that,
Right.
right? And there's too much distractions and clutter in everybody's world today, and travel gives you that space to disconnect for a while. We're seeing that being the strongest reason why people are choosing to travel. But coming to experience, I think indeed, we've been obsessed about customer experience right from very early days, and Ixigo has gone through a few pivots in what how we think about ourselves, right? Starting with first a flight's meta search in the early days of the desktop era of the internet, and then once mobile came, we figured out that train was a large segment that was uncatered to in terms of solving for deep pain areas that customers had. So we spent a lot of time solving those. We got a lot of traction, became pretty popular as a result of that. And then buses we got into through an acquisition, understood that there were a lot of unsolved problems even in that space. So we get excited when we see unsolved problems or pain areas in any space, because it means there is scope to deploy technology and increasingly AI to solve those customer pain
Customer pain.
points, and therefore build that customer loyalty over time. Because I think selling a ticket has never been something that we were fundamentally obsessed with. It's actually a byproduct of the trust that we build through serving customers deeply on all these pain areas that exist before, during, and after the trip. And if you think about everything Ixigo has done along the journey, it's actually been about that figure out where that experience breaks, because the joyful experience we are talking about becomes less joyful when the train is running late, or the gate of the flight has changed, or
Right.
the hotel is now saying you'll not get the room that you were promised.
Right.
And I think that's where the experience breaks in the real world, or that's where the anxiety creeps in. Will I get the extra bed for my kids or not in this room, right?
Right.
And I think that's where, as a platform, we have never thought of ourselves as a company that sells tickets. We've always thought of ourselves as a company that sells peace of mind. And peace of mind is very hard to sell, because you need to take care of every small pain point that may arise and be obsessed over it. So in a nutshell, that's been our philosophy in building this. Um, and our vision statement is also that we want to build the best customer experience in travel. And I think we are obviously still getting started on that journey, and will remain obsessed even many, many decades from now, hopefully, about this.
It's very interesting because, I mean, ideally when you look at, let's say, Ixigo, I go there to buy travel tickets. But it's interesting that you behind the scenes are looking at an end-to-end experience, which gives me that trust. Because another big question is that how do you build trust? It's not just about one or two great experiences.
Yeah.
It's about consistency as well, and then having a thought that somebody is there.
Yes.
Right, it's
Yeah.
like, even if I face something, I'm outside India,
Yeah.
travel, something, messes up, or my flight gets cancelled, at least that assurance that somebody is there. Which,
Yeah.
it's interesting to see that, but doesn't that apply a lot of challenges, in the sense that, especially in India, let's say, where there are a lot of infrastructure challenges as well, like you're saying,
Yeah.
trains getting cancelled, or so many things could happen, which are beyond your control, first of
Yeah.
all. Plus, that's not even that, when I'm buying a ticket, I would not expect.
Yeah.
So how do you then take that subtle ownership to build that trust? I mean, I'm sure it must have been difficult to.
Yeah, no, see, I think the difficult part here is that when you're obsessed about a pain point where there is no monetization even, right? Like, I'll give you a small example. We spent a couple of years in the early days just solving the waitlisted PNR prediction problem, and then we were solving the how late is the train actually going to arrive at the next station, because sometimes it catches up, other times it even becomes slower, and this is more of a
Right.
data science and AI problem, because
Right.
you look at the train in front, you look at the trends from the last few days, and then you also look at the actual location of your users sitting on the train who have shared their location with you, right? So I think the moment you think about these problems, the only reason why we were solving them is because we felt it mattered for those travelers, and nobody was actually out there solving them. So we found this gap, saying the problem exists, it's faced by millions of travelers every day, nobody's solving it.
Nobody's taking ownership of
Nobody's
that.
taking ownership of it, and perhaps why nobody's solving it is because people believe that it's not a monetizable problem, because we get biased when it comes to innovation. A lot of companies get biased by where is the ROI, okay, I'll spend time building this, how will we monetize this? And I think many people choose not to do something where monetization is not evident. But the highest ROI innovations started as things that nobody had any obsession for monetization for, but became so big over time. You look at Google, you look at Meta, you look at OpenAI. At the end of the day, if you're solving a hard problem, it may take years. It may mean you will not monetize for a few years as well. There was not much monetization in early days of Ixigo either.
Okay.
But if you solve it deeply enough, there will be enough customer love. And that customer love means that you evoke trust. And that trust is monetizable through other means, right? Because once somebody trusts you, if you trusted my train app as a utility app, and then I started selling tickets, you start buying tickets through me because you trust the brand already.
Right.
On flights, again, we spend disproportionate time on things like how fast are we refunding customers, how fast are we answering their calls, because the common grouse we hear in the industry is people don't answer phone calls when things go wrong, people don't refund money on time, you have to chase people for your own money. And I think if travel industry was known for that, we said it should not be known for things like these, right? In other verticals, in e-commerce, there are companies that have no questions asked, full refund. Why can't we build something like that for travel? And we built Ixigo Assured, right? So it started with a very simple first principle thinking around saying, why is this an established industry norm in the first place that I'm made to wait for few days because somebody has not got back the money from the airline or the supply side? How do I care as a customer, right? And I think when you ask those fundamental questions, you get to the core insight that this problem was assumed not worthy to be solved because there was no commercial motivation to solve it. But many of the best problems in the world, were solved only because the guy who solved them or the company that solved them did not have any commercial motivation to solve them. But then after solving it, the prize on the other side is quite big, right? Because you've built trust.
But at that time, you have to be crazy or obsessed about it.
You have to be crazily obsessed about it.
Obsessed about it
because you're not even thinking about what happens afterwards. Like, you're just saying this problem needs to be solved in the best way possible. Right?
But has it happened that you built something and nobody noticed? I mean, I'll give an example. I saw an interview of Nawazuddin. Very interesting. He said, I thought I gave the best shot of my life. He's like, when I went to the theater, that scene came. He's like, nobody even clapped or blinked or did anything. I was like, what's happening? I was like, and some of my average shots, people are laughing, clapping. So how do you, I mean, there would have been something.
It's happened to us. We've launched many apps along the way that we shut down. We had, back in the days, we had a cabs meta search app that would search across all cab aggregators and show you all of them, right? Across Uber, Ola, etc. All of them, and show you, which were the nearest cabs and at what price, etc. It was a great, in hindsight, was a great app, but somehow didn't take, and we spent a lot of time, energy building it. Somehow didn't take off. The monetization eventually wasn't great, but we felt it was a worthy enough problem to solve. Kept solving it, but you reach a point where, you say, I have a more worthy problem to solve and I have limited resources, right? You can't do 10 things.
Exactly.
So as a small startup, we decided to just focus on flight and train and bus, etc. at that point. But it has happened along the way that, you pick up something, you spend disproportionate time, you launch it, it doesn't work, it's okay, you pull the plug and then you launch something else. Remember that the companies that do not do these experiments are at the highest risk of disruption, because most companies have a core that's working very well for them, and that's generating some cash for them, cash cow, and that's very stable and growing at a predictable growth rate. But that core never defines the next 10 years for them. That core only gives the cash flows to fund the next growth engine, right? And that's how you should think about that opportunity, saying, okay, I have a cash cow, I have something that works, or I have a core that consumers come for. But where will the world be in 5 years, 10 years? I need to be investing in that, because if I don't, I'll become another Kodak or Nokia or BlackBerry or whatever, right? I mean, where
Right.
I fail to see where the sands are shifting and I fail to invest in that bet. So many companies fall in that trap because if something is working, obviously you feel that deserves more attention, but you got to keep making these sideways bets, right? For us, in fact, the train app for us was a sideways bet which we did in a hackathon, and Rajneesh and 4 engineers went into a room, came out with this app, and then it just took off, right? And once it took off, we gave it more resources. But similarly, recently on flights, we've seen phenomenal growth after we've sort of added a lot of value-added services there. So I think it's about just staying at it, keeping at it, with the optimism that you will be able to build something large and meaningful. And only if you don't see much traction should you decide to sort of not do it anymore.
do it.
But if it solves a real problem, by the way, it will see traction, because if the problem exists and is faced by millions of people out there, you will see that traction.
But how should organizations who are not that big, let's say, who are growing, how should they structure themselves? Because it's a balance between giving reliable experience
Yeah.
versus delight. Where for delight, you have to keep
Yes.
solving problems which nobody else is
Yeah.
solving,
Yeah.
and keep investing, keep doing. But then how do you
So,
how should we?
And delight has no limits also. Like, I mean,
True. Yeah. I mean, as a customer, Indian customer, they would want everything.
Exactly. No, even as a company, I mean, if you set the bar high and let's say you hit that bar in a year, you have to set it higher all the time, right? So on customer experience metrics, right? Companies say, okay, I want to achieve this particular threshold on that particular metric, right? Now, what if you achieve that threshold? You got to raise the bar higher next year and say the threshold needs to be way bigger.
But
That's how you consistently improve, right? Because the last mile between going from, let's say you're at 40 or 50 NPS and you need to go to 70, 80, it's that mile is the hardest mile, right? Like, and because it's the point where you want very few disappointed customers. And what that means is that you reach a point where even one disappointed customer for you, you start losing sleep over. Right. And I think most companies along the way tolerate a certain level of, 100% reliability, nahi hogi. So, let's just live with this. But I think if you keep setting that bar high, you inch closer to 100% over time, right? And that's what the aspiration should
become
be.
consistent over time, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Because otherwise the team settles for mediocrity, right? Because good is good enough, culture sets in.
Right.
So I think one thing we've learned along the way is that yes, what was good enough to yesterday, is not going to be good enough tomorrow.
Right.
Because also the competition in the market and the expectation of the consumer keeps evolving. Right. That's not static.
Right.
So 2 years back, if someone launched an AI chatbot which didn't work 20% of the time, people may have tolerated it.
True.
Right. But today they won't, because the technology allows
It's
you
like
to
the highway. You build a highway, more traffic comes in. You build a flyover,
Absolutely.
more traffic. You have to constantly innovate. But I get the reliability. But delight, one point just came to my mind is, do you think that delight is sometimes delusional? In the sense that, are you just making the customer happy or solving a problem? I'll give you an example. For example, the whole chase for 10-minute delivery. Do I need it in 10 minutes? Not every time. Maybe few things like medicine, or maybe few things. But everything at 10 minutes, maybe I don't want it. Maybe that is making me disorganized. I mean, me and my wife started feeling disorganized. Earlier we used to plan for the month, order. Now it's like, if it's okay, khatam ho gaya, let's order. Even our cook says, the oil is finished.
Yeah, no, I think in that particular example, it is changing the consumer behavior.
It is changing.
Having said that, look, I think one thing that these companies have done is set the bar really high in a market like India, where everything is unpredictable, the traffic is unpredictable, the fact that whether your inventory will arrive on time in the dark store is also at times unpredictable. But despite all that, if they're able to deliver a consistent experience, hats off to the execution of those companies, right?
Yeah.
I think, and then there's the secondary question is it viable in terms of, and that comes later. Like I said, if you're obsessed about solving that one problem, saying I can get a very large number of SKUs into people's hand within 10 minutes or 15 minutes, whatever have you. If that's the problem that obsesses you, and if there is a large enough number of users, so you might not care about, let's say, whether it comes in 15 or 30, but there might be people out there who do, right? And there might be use cases out there. There's a kid who needs to dress up in a Halloween costume but doesn't have one.
Going to a birthday party and we need a gift.
And
Our common use case.
and I think I think it has changed not just the consumer behavior but also the level that we talked about on consumer delight. What does it mean? So today, like 1 day, 2 day delivery is not good enough anymore. It was 2 years ago. Like we were all raving about like 1 day delivery, right? But hey, now like 10 minutes is the new cool.
My 5-year-old, he scolded us at that. He's like, I wanted this. I was like, we have ordered through Amazon. He's like, why Amazon? You should have done it on Blinkit. Amazon will come tomorrow. I need it now.
Right. So I think that's what companies setting high benchmarks, do. They change consumer expectations over time. Because imagine this, right? Like if it was normal to dial a number and then wait on an IVR for 2 minutes to get on the line with someone, and now you have an AI bot on the other end talking to you like a human, resolving it in real time. That becomes after a while the new normal, and you expect that, hey, I dial this number, why am I not connected to someone I can talk to right away? Right? Because when every company adopts that, it becomes a new normal. So the ecosystem's experience elevates the moment this adoption starts to impact everyone around. But the companies that actually got into that first, obviously the amount of learning and data that they have got as a result of being pioneers in that, obviously gives them some moat for a while, because those learnings are immense on how to actually run the show that way.
But when I'm sure you have, from your teams, you get a lot of ideas, especially with AI now, you can do quick prototyping. But then how do you decide, okay, I'm sure there are so more than 10, 20, 50 problems which are yet to be solved, and every new year new problems will come. So how do you prioritize that? I'm just curious, because we talked about reliability, delight.
No, so there's two kind of things we do, which I alluded to. So there is things which are iterative and improving what you already have, right? Okay. Think of it as, okay, if I'm launching new features in an existing product,
right,
or imagining new latch-on products on that,
right,
value-added services, peace of mind products, etc.
Right.
Or am I reimagining the world and saying, let's place a bet on this is what the world will look like, and the role of an online travel agent might change to becoming your personal travel agent or personal travel assistant,
right?
And you might have to be more preemptive and predictive and hyper personalized. So should we build that agentic AI version of our future? And you place a bet, which we have done in our AI disruption pod, saying that there's this part of our company may end up disrupting ourselves, right? But it's better than two boys sitting in a dorm room somewhere, or doing that to you, because you have to be paranoid to that extent.
Right.
That's how innovation sort of continues, because if you believe you're invincible all the time, you're not gonna lay bets on things that may disrupt you. But you have to be that paranoid, because the world, I think the world is going to change a lot more in the next 5 years than it has done in the last 50 years, right? And the reason is that we cannot imagine the kind of things AI can do for us at this moment of time. We are using what will be in hindsight the worst AI we have ever used.
True.
Right? So, and we will laugh about it 5 years from now, saying, okay, were we actually typing in these long prompts and doing all this?
Right.
Because that's where things will get to. And I think if you think of the world that way, the opportunities that may emerge are what you need to be taking a bet on right now.
So you have to constantly do it. It's very interesting. I spoke to my previous guest. He said, we talked about emotions, love, hate. It's like customers hate something when something is really important for them and they have no control over it.
Right.
So our ideology is that how do we give that control back?
Absolutely.
Like the whole, Uber, Zomato showing where the driver is.
No, in the travel context,
back, right?
In the travel context, for example, people come and tell me, hey, what if the AI does everything for you, including the booking? And I'm like, dude, are you sure that for your family, your wife and kids, without you checking once,
Yeah.
you will let an AI go and choose a hotel for you and just
Yeah.
book it. I think at this moment of time, I
Right.
won't. At this point of time, I want to be at least shown some options. So I think the AI will help you decide better right now.
Discovery. Yeah.
I think at some point when we build enough confidence of using these things, we may hand off everything to them.
Right.
But like you said, there's a joy in planning your trip. There's a joy
True.
in that keeping that power of deciding finally, okay, this is where we are going, and this is what we are choosing. But where will the AI help? The AI will help in personalizing and giving you those three options that you might like, right? Because
Right.
uh, if it knows enough about you, it can do that, right? And I think that's where companies like us can play a role in saying, okay, how do we use this technology? How do we use the latest models and our proprietary data and the customers' past interactions with us to personalize the experience and make it so preemptive that you don't even need to ask for it. I already can sense that this is what you want to see next, right?
Right.
And I think that's possible with today's technology, and most companies out there should be working on it.
So we're talking about innovations, talking about delight, talking about AI, and especially in a tech-driven organization. But how do you orchestrate empathy in that? Because
Yeah.
I've been following you, and you speak about that you don't want to just focus on metros, you want to focus on Bharat, right?
Yeah.
And that is a very wide spectrum. Now, to have a one size fits all,
Yeah.
also focus on AI, constantly evolving, like
Yeah.
trying different things, solving more problems, but design for empathy. So,
Right.
so how does one do that?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, look, the AI is actually going to help us solve in a more personalized way to every individual based on their cultural nuances, regional language nuances, or their travel nuances of that cultural context, right? So um, if you're someone who prefers talking in your native language, and or even if you're speaking Hindi in a certain dialect, right? If the AI can converse to you just like someone from your area, like, I think there's a relatability that improves dramatically, and then that AI actually becomes more human to you than a human, because it's speaking your language, right, and speaking
And
your
knows my
dialect,
context, where I come
your
from.
context. If it's a Tamil person visiting Varanasi, if that's the context, if it's talking in Tamil and also able to understand, what that cohort of travelers typically wants to do there, has that context, and also marries that with other things, right? I think a human cannot do it in the same amount of time and energy that an AI would, right?
Right.
So in that sense, AI will help us become, and every company, it will help become more um, personalized and more relevant in the
In
context,
that context.
contextually relevant, and that will unlock huge opportunities for people targeting Bharat, because the level of diversity we have in our country, not just by languages, but if you look at just the everything like food,
Right.
travel behavior, uh, whether someone actually likes visiting certain types of monuments or temples, or are you a spiritual traveler? I think there's in travel, the cuts can be many, right? But being able to identify the demographic, sociographic cut, and then being able to present relatable content to you or relatable options to you, AI will help solve that, right? And I think um, on empathy in particular, look, empathy is our core cultural value at Ixigo, but it's not something which is a poster on the wall and says that everybody needs to follow it. Empathy can only be lived through actions, and it can be demonstrated through actions, right? So I know lately, it's become a hot topic to talk about, especially after COVID, and
Right.
people have started
Right.
talking a lot about it. But if you go back in history, we've been talking about it from inception, right? It's been something we believe is very core to our existence, and the way we demonstrate it is through the actions of first of all, the founding team, the CXOs, the leadership team, and then it trickles down to even the person who picks up the phone when something goes wrong and helps you solve the problem. Because I mean, and the mandate is very simple, that we should uh, we should treat situations and people as humanly as possible, right? Because most organizations, as they grow, things become more robotic slash um, more process driven,
Process driven.
and somebody's reading off a script, somebody's sticking to the guidelines,
Right.
follow the instructions.
And you expect to be empathetic to customers. I mean,
And it just inherently conflicts with the idea of being more empathetic and relatable with the customer, because sometimes the rule book does not have solutions for problems. Most of the complex problems that arise do not have playbooks written for them.
I think
Right.
COVID has been a classic example.
COVID is a
Nobody
classic case
expected
study
how
for that.
travel
Nobody
becomes
knew how to
zero.
deal with that, right?
Right.
So nobody was prepared for it. Nobody knew how to deal with it. The knee-jerk reaction for most companies was let go people, hold back refunds,
Yeah.
all that.
Yeah.
Preserve yourself, right? And we did some very counterintuitive things during that time, which, as in counterintuitive to the outside world, but it was very intuitive for us to do that because that's who we are. So first of all, we said we're not letting go anyone in the team. Everybody
Right.
sort of collectively took that decision, and people chose to let go their salaries to make the probability of the company surviving increase, and even to the extent of giving refunds from our own balance sheet and from our own pockets. I mean, there was this day when our payment gateways that usually collect money for you, we were using them to refund money, but then you need to feed money into those
Right.
PG accounts, right? And
Right.
over the weekend, it wasn't possible to transfer money into those, but we ran out of negative balance problem, because of which the decision was, do we hold back refunds till Monday, or do we refund through some other means? And we went on this call on Saturday morning and decided, no, we can't hold back refunds. This is COVID time. We don't know how much agony that customer is in
They're already
right now, or
anxious.
his family is in. He needs some money. You don't know if he has someone in hospital. I mean, we were thinking of all these scenarios, saying we're talking about somebody's precious hard-earned money. It has to be given back. We crowdsourced money from our employees from Ixigems, and we gave back about 40 lakhs, right? And
Wow.
Monday, when we managed to collect some money into, we were still able to sell some services and all. Once we collected the money, we were able to give it back to our team, and for the sacrifices the team took, we gave them all ESOPs. But it gave us I mean, that template existed also from the previous crisis in GFC. We did something similar, although we were a smaller team. Global financial crisis, Lehman Brothers crisis, we did the same thing, which is did not let go people. We all cut back salaries. I mean, starts from the top. So the announcement was made saying, I'm going to let go all my salary till each of you is not back to their original salary. I will not drop any, right? Neither will Rajneesh, my co-founder, and then the leadership team took a 80% cut. So it has to start from the actions at the top.
Right.
I believe that culture gets set by the actions of the people at the top,
And you have to
which
live
means you have to make sacrifices and you have to live it, right? And that becomes the culture. It's not like a cultural handbook or a poster on the wall. It's those actions in difficult times that define the culture. So when we showed empathy there by saying holding back refunds even for 2 days is not acceptable, it just became the internal gospel of sorts, saying that, boss, this company puts customers before everything else, and we have proven it through our actions. It's not something. I think most companies say they're customer obsessed. I don't think that's something new. But being obsessed to the extent where you say that, I put them above everything else, even my own existence, I think that's what we did there at some point, because we didn't know how quickly COVID would go away, or things would bounce back. Thankfully, things came back within 5-6 months, and we managed to survive. But what it gave us, I think we got immense love from the customers that we helped during the time, because
Right.
people remember for their lifetime the people who helped them during tough times.
True. Yeah.
Those customers will not go to any other travel company ever, right? Because they will remember those times. It becomes folklore for them to tell other people. And
Right.
they told so many people that we grew back. We were the only OTA in India whose revenue in the COVID year was more than the revenue in the previous year.
Wow. In travel, especially,
In travel.
which was
So when the
hit so
market
badly.
opened, in 6 months, we did more business than the previous full year.
Wow.
So, that's
Like you're
only,
saying, the love comes back.
that's only possible if you, and not that we did it for that, but, we did it with the
Because that was the whole
intent.
DNA, like you're
But
saying. That
it
was
just,
the whole...
it's the karmic theory that, we all have grown up with, where we were told that, आप जो करोगे आपके साथ वैसे ही होगा. It actually happens. And it happens because, that's how the world works. There is, there is the law of essentially, what you do to others comes back to you. So if you're nice to your customers,
Doing for the
your
larger
customers
good.
will be nice
Right.
to you, right? And that's what has happened to us so far. And I hope we continue raising the bar on how nice we are to customers. And trust me, as you grow bigger, it gets harder and harder because you're now dealing with millions of customers every month.
Right.
But we are still trying to still raise the bar on all our customer experience metrics, despite the scale going that big. Yeah.
Very interesting, because I was about to ask that, especially in such a diverse, market like India, and in a business which is driven by tech, and you're driving that, and the teams would be constantly looking at how do you automate certain things, or how to build the AI or tech behind it. How do you not teach, how do you make the team live that empathy, that that behind that is not a customer, it's actually a human who's actually trying to book a ticket, who's actually trying, is stuck somewhere. The team has to feel it. But I think your whole, not just philosophy, living through it is where it
I think it's also the benchmarks that you set on things, right? So my co-founder Rajneesh, for example, on product, even if something's off by a pixel, it's a big issue which needs to be solved, right? Because the tolerance that you set then is that it cannot be off by a pixel, right? And if there is a 2 a.m. tag on my X account by an angry customer, if I'm awake, I'm definitely gonna answer him within 10 minutes, right? Feel obliged to, right? And I think and that level of obsession about saying, okay, even one poor experience is valuable enough to salvage, right? Like, I think it's very important to set that kind of benchmark. You'll never get to a point where you're 100% perfect. We all know that, right? Like, but we can strive towards it all the time. And I think only when you strive towards it all the time, you improve those metrics year on year.
Progress over perfection then.
Absolutely. And I think, look, as human beings, there'll always be imperfections. Customers are forgiving at times of small, things that went wrong, as long as you acknowledge them and you fix them for them, right? A lot of companies don't even do that, right? Because they're inflexible on policies, etc. I mean, obviously there is a certain guardrail you cannot go beyond, right? So there are policies, etc. But if there is a situation that demands you to be more flexible, let's say put yourself in that customer's shoes. That's a test I tell my support team, that, if you were on the other side, because sometimes they come to me saying, what should we do? And like, okay, if you were on the other side, what would you expect us to do? And just do that, right? Like, it's not rocket science to think about that. So I think some people don't apply that test and just go with, this is what the company policy says. In most companies, it works that way. But we never chose that. In fact, I remember even in the early days, we never gave people scripts to read off. We said directionally, these are the things that you can talk about, but build your own, talk like a normal human with the customer, right? Like, don't make it sound like...
Yeah, because at the end of the day, if I'm in distress, basic thing I would want is somebody there who I can talk to and discuss. At least tell my problem.
And more so in the world of AI, because the temptation right now is to throw an AI chatbot at everybody and just wash your hands off saying, I'm not reachable.
Right.
That should not be the case, right? So we have identified situations which are more critical. Like, if somebody is actually standing at the airport right now and there's something that went wrong and his flight is in the next couple of hours, he or she does not want to talk to an AI bot, right, at this point. Unless the AI bot tomorrow was perfectly indistinguishable from a human being,
Right.
which they're getting there, but they're not there yet, right? Unless that was the case, I think you would not want that person at that moment of time where, it's a matter of 2 hours whether they'll miss the flight, catch the flight. If something's gone wrong, can we fix it? I would rather stay on the phone as a human being till the problem gets resolved, right? That's what they expect you to do. So we are doing that. And that's why, even though progressively we've gone to 90% of our chat support now is AI, but I don't think the aspiration is to take that to 100% at any short moment. I mean, there'll always be humans in the loop
Right.
that for critical things, for last minute things, you want to get through to someone who gives you, because you get this sigh of relief after talking to a human these days, right?
Right,
And
right.
I think, but that's
I go
only.
to ChatGPT to say what
Yeah.
question should I ask a chatbot to get me a human.
But having said that, now if you flip the argument, the threshold of what I said good is not good enough, it needs to be great. For the AI chatbot, that's the threshold, saying if one day you can communicate with the same level of empathy on an urgent scenario without someone being able to detect that there is not a human on the other end of the line, you've cracked it. I think that's the holy grail for AI chatbots. I think we are still far away from that, but at some point, I would not be surprised if the world gets there. It will still have a human in the loop to evaluate whether that chatbot is good enough,
Right.
but
Till it gets there.
till it gets there,
Till it grows up.
Yes.
But is there where you see the future of travel in the sense? When I say future, earlier it used to be 10 years. Now future is like, say, 1 year down the line. Is there how you see where the maximum transformation would happen?
Look, I think customer service was the low-hanging fruit in that sense. Like, we've been doing
Right.
AI-based customer service now for almost 6-7 years almost, right? Like, we launched Tara, we demoed it in 2017, we launched it in 2018. It was built off the transformer model in the early years, and then became more LLM driven, Gen AI driven. But then I think and voice is more recent. So voice, now we are almost at half of our voice calls are end-to-end agentic AI. But where is this headed? I think, look, I can think of, and this was a low-hanging fruit, but I can think of a world where even all the back-end processes of solving that problem, right? And we've started to do some of that ourselves, saying, okay, now if someone needs to talk to the airline to get something done, can that leg also be done through an AI talking to the customer support agent? And then I think the next level of that is you would have an AI at the other end as well, and you would have two bots talking to each other. I think that world is coming very quickly. Agent to agent communication, right? I think that's where this all converges to at some point. But if I crystal ball gaze a bit, I think the role of humans is to define what tone of voice, empathy levels need to exist, right? And like, we used to have manual QC of human agents, right? You would pick up the phone and barge in and listen to the call. I think we've been able to train some AIs to also
Do that.
QC the calls of
Other
AIs. But somebody needs to QC this AI too, right? So I think,
over AI.
yeah. So I think
Go to
there is
the whole
always there's
hierarchy.
always a role of humans coming in somewhere. I mean, classical examples also, like, we use AI in the marketing team to build video content and imagery, etc. But then I think the prompting has to be done by someone who understands this stuff, right? And you need the domain expert there still to build it in the right way, and with the production capabilities and the design sense, the art sense of doing things, right?
Connect with the pulse of what?
Correct.
Yeah.
But
Users.
my fear is that just an intermediate phase before even some of that gets learned by AI models over time. Because remember that right now the horizontal AI companies are hiring PhDs and experts, and recently they hired a bunch of people from investment banking just to train the model on iBanking specific stuff.
Right.
Then they have trained doctors and trained scientists doing the evals as well. The eval companies are hiring PhDs to do evals. So I think some of that could change very rapidly, but who's to guess how quickly some of the less lower hanging stuff goes away. But we have to assume as companies that we will have more powerful tools in our hand. the sum of all human intellect in the world will be available at $10 a month or $20 a month, whatever
Right.
that is. And that is a world none of us are prepared for today. Like, we are trying to adapt to it, we are trying to experiment with it, we are trying to fully use the capabilities we have in our hands, but I think we are still very, very early in adopting it. Yeah.
Interesting. And another philosophy that I've heard you talk about is the whole simplicity as a strategy. That how do you solve one thing at a time, do really good, and likewise
Yeah.
solve one problem at a time.
Yes.
So, I mean, that is how also you see that rather than getting cluttered with so many things coming, rather than focus on one thing, solve that, to the perfection. And like what you say, Rajneesh also follows, and then move on to the next
Yeah.
one, right?
Yeah, no, I think we got better at it over time. I think there was a phase of the company where we were doing too many things, and then we had to cut back on things the early years and focus on just a few things. I think the temptation always is to try and do too many things, but then you're not perfect at any of them. So I think it's very
Right.
important to focus on one thing at a time and take it to a certain level of perfection and then move to the next. I wouldn't say we are perfect at it yet, but yes, uh, we do have a level of uh, imperfection where we cannot tolerate things anymore, right? So I think it's important to define what that tolerance threshold is for every product that's out there and keep raising that bar every year, like I said. So uh, what could be perfect to the outside world might be imperfect in the eyes of the
Right.
leadership team running it,
Right.
and only the people working in those teams know that internally we feel that, oh my god, this is not where we want it to be. Outside world might be very happy with
It's
it,
like
but
theater.
because
When you do a play, the glitch happens. People don't realize,
people
but
don't
you know
realize
it, right?
it, you know that it was so.
Yeah.
Like the example I gave you, Rajneesh should know it's 1 pixel off, but
Nobody will
maybe
even see
the
it.
very
Yeah.
few users would have noticed, right?
Right.
But I think it's important to keep doing that, because it's a bit like parenting. Like, if you are always very, very happy with what your kid does, they're
Then
going to try harder.
right.
And I think it's very similar in companies that whatever the leadership team sets as the benchmark becomes that it's good enough, right? If you're meeting that, and if those benchmarks you don't keep raising and you don't keep saying that you're still unhappy about something, it's unlikely that people will strive harder or come up with more creative solutions to solve that problem, right? So it's that push, that adversity, that feeling of, oh, I haven't been able to do this yet,
Yet.
right, which makes you bring out the best in you.
Right.
What's more important is what does one customer tell another when they introduce your brand. That's who you are, right? And if that reason is something related to your product experience, your customer experience, your how you treat your customers, I think that goes a very long way,
Long way.
right? That's something we have learned at Ixigo, that because most of our growth was word of mouth, right? In the early years, we didn't have the capital to spend on marketing,
Right.
and we had viral videos that we used to build and all of that. Um, I think we came to be known as a company that was essentially obsessed about doing the right things and educating customers, because we were doing a lot of utilitarian, informational sort of use cases and not just transactional. And as we became an OTA, we became more known as someone who also cares about every cohort of customers, because unlike many companies that chose to focus on the top 50 million users, we chose to broaden our horizon and focus on the next billion users, right? So I think people may have over time, developed their own uh, liking of what they like about our products, and that becomes the talking point for them. So if you're a user in our let's say train app, frequent user, then while sitting on a train, somebody might have talked about how good our certain feature set is, that we tell you the platform numbers accurately or your running status accurately, or the train ticketing experience is very smooth, and and or we are refunding money faster, or we are able to answer customer complaints faster and solve them. Those become the talking points for the brand, right? But net, I think when you start to build a brand in a traditional way where you spend money and also tell people who you are, I think a lot of that has to be relatable to what your brand actually does, right? So a lot of companies will do that, create a story, um, and may not have, sort of the service level to back that story fully. I think those over time, you'll not see the effect that brand marketing spend gave to them. But I think if you're selling a story that's sticking to your core and basically
Because
aligned with your core
experience
values.
also has that compounding effect, which
Absolutely. Because see, any promise that you make will fall flat if you don't deliver on that, right? So the brand promise has to be such that you can deliver on it. And only then you shout on the top of your voice about that brand promise. So I think that part is very important. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's been honestly a great discussion learning for me, because where I was coming on the whole citizen part as well, is because when I see, the whole inspiration part, which I get from Ixigo as well, is that how the whole value system, right?
Yeah.
That how do we look at customers? How do we put their problems before us, which comes from our values, how we go
It
solve
does.
for it. And
It
that,
does.
which everybody's trying to solve for, is empathy. It
And if
is
I have to
part of
add
our
here,
DNA.
right, our cultural traditions, our dharmic values make us more empathetic. The reason is that, we are always told that if you do something to someone, it's going to come back to you, right?
Right.
I think that inherently makes Indians a little more empathetic towards others, right, on the planet. And I think the only place where it's not showing, and it should, is civic sense.
It'll get there.
And it will get there, hopefully, and in
Yeah.
pockets, it's getting better. But I think in general, about when you're in a situation and somebody genuinely wants to help you out, I've seen enough people step forward and
Right.
sort of do that. And I've lived abroad, so I know that despite the fact somebody may be from a disadvantaged socioeconomic background, people will step forward and do their best in situations of adversity, right?
Right.
And we've seen examples of it. Like, I remember, when we were doing these during COVID, when we were trying to figure out our survival plan,
Right.
we decided deliberately that people at the entry level salaries, will not either touch their salaries or like maybe reduce it very little, because it's survival money, right?
Right.
One or two of the folks volunteered. They pinged me and they said, "Sir, आपको हमारी salary भी काटनी है तो काट दो, right? पूरी
That
काट
speaks
दो."
volume, right?
And I think that to me speaks volumes about how much empathy people can have. Even so, it has nothing to do with your socio-economic background. In fact, it might be inversely correlated. Is what I feel, that some people from privilege may not have enough empathy,
Right.
because they're not closer to the adversities of life anymore, right? And so I believe, and that is one more thing I'll leave with your viewers, that it's very important to experience adversity in your life, because it builds more empathy. So if you wanted to ask me how do I become more empathetic, I will say go through a lot of pain, go through a lot of adversity.
Do a
You'll
startup.
automatically become empathetic.
Do a startup. You'll go through.
Do a bootstrap startup for 5 years without VC funding. You will become very empathetic. I still remember I did not have a credit card till 2011 or 12, right? And we started 2006, 7. So 5 years.
Right.
But point is, people actually during those times can have knee-jerk reactions that make them less empathetic, because they may feel कि मेरे साथ ये क्यों हो रहा है,
It's a
right?
survival
All of that
decision
survival
also.
thing.
Yeah. It's difficult, of course.
I think you have to believe that something good will come out of that pain and go through it.
It's interesting because the whole value system, people talk about processes. You can't create a process for empathy. It has to be driven by the
just
whole value
cannot.
system. Yeah. And like you're saying, you give that to the customer, solve their problem, and the whole love comes back. And obviously then the whole revenue becomes it'll follow, but that is not the primary goal.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you.
Absolutely. Amazing.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
you.
I'm sure everybody would like it. Keep watching CX with Chopra for more such episodes. And do like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.
Bye bye.